those who have not registered their cards, and even including those who have registered but currently do not have the opportunity to use their SIM cards.
Top story is always brought to you by Vodafone, also by Trellador. The National Communications Authority has tonight been dragged to the Supreme Court for abuse of discretion and the arbitrary and capricious blocking of SIM cards. Across the country today, there's been anger at the NCA that they block SIM cards, even for people who have fully complied with the government directive to re-register their SIMs. Here's a taste of that anger. Well, the NCA had intended to block SIMs of only people who had not re-registered, but that is far from the reality. My colleagues have been across the country and came back with evidence of many people now in queues at several service centers belonging to the telecom companies, angry that their SIMs have been blocked, although they have fully complied with the ministry and the NCA's own directive to fully re-register. Here are a few of them.
I came to re-register my SIM. I did I think January 14th this year. Just yesterday, the whole of yesterday, I couldn't make a call. So I have to call their call center. When I called, they said, I have to come and re-register again. That's why I'm here today.
They registered everything for me to use the SIM, alright. But I think I was there last 2 days. When I tried to make call, it was not going through. So I decided to come here and check. But they said it's not their fault. So I should wait. But I can't wait. I have to use the SIM to do a lot. My mom is at the hospital right now. I have to make calls and all that. So I have to buy a new SIM, then I will throw this one away.
I woke up this morning. I'm trying to make call. It's not going. So I'm coming to find out why the call is not going.
Are people able to call you?
No, nobody has called me. Just
they can't call you.
No, I don't receive call. I can't receive call.
Process is too bad. The process is very, very bad because we've been here almost about 3 days. I personally have been here about 3 days, and up to now I can't even get access to inside to register my SIM card. So they should do something about it. We are suffering.
But why are you here exactly? Have you registered your SIM?
Yes, it has been registered, but they have blocked it.
They've blocked your SIM?
They have blocked the SIM. I can receive, but I can't make a call.
You can't make a call?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to get into the details of the class action suit that is gathering pace tonight. At the last count, there are 1,160 people already signing up, appending their signatures to that suit that is being led by Imani Africa. So we're going to be getting into that pretty shortly, and it's that number is still growing. But already, an individual has already taken that lead and has filed the suit now. The Supreme Court against the NCA. In the studio with me is my colleague Bless. Bless, so this was filed when?
So this was filed today, as we understand, and it's being filed by the People's Project. Now, the People's Project is obviously an initiative by high life musician Kwame A+, who's also a very known political activist in this country. He's making in all 6 demands. And in all of these demands, he's basing his argument on about 3 different articles of the Constitution. But he's basing that largely on Article 296, which talks about the power of discretion. And according to A+ and his lawyers, such powers must not be capricious and it must be exercised in good faith. So the first argument they're making is that announcement by the sector minister to block all SIM cards on the 31st of this month is first of all being exercised in bad faith and contravenes Article 296 of the Constitution. So the powers that the minister has as discretionary powers is not being exercised appropriately.
So it's an abuse of her discretion.
First of all, that's the first point they are raising. They are also challenging the legality of the sanctions that the NCA is visiting on Ghanaians. You know that many Ghanaians are unable to make calls. The TPP, which is the People's Project, is making that second case that the NCA has no such constitutional power to go ahead with the sanctions that they are, of course, applying to individuals. And then there's the third leg to the argument, which has got to do with the Ghana card. You know that the Ghana card is that piece of document required as part of the registration process for the SIM cards. A+ through his lawyers is making that argument that a lot of Ghanaians do not have their Ghana cards. So knowing and in fact acknowledging that fact, which the minister has of course said during previous press briefings, it would not be fair to go ahead and sanction these people. So the Ministry of Communications, and by extension the regulator, the National Communications Authority, would have to, and that's the word they're using, wait until such a time that the National Identification Authority is able to issue all Ghanaians with their Ghana cards. And that's the most controversial aspect of the demands they are making. And then they talk about the need for the court to determine any further restraints on the National Communications Authority, because in their view, even when the case is being heard, even before the determinations are made on the matter, the NCA must be restrained from further applying any sanctions which the minister has given hint of.
Okay, Bless, thank you very much. And this suit has now been filed that the Supreme Court will speak shortly with the Director of Legal at the NCA on this. And we'll also be speaking to Imani. They are behind that class action suit. And we are updated that as to the last check a few minutes back, more than 1,000 people, 1,100 people more have signed up, asking for this petition to go ahead, this class action suit to go ahead. Today, the minority in Parliament also held a press conference on this matter. That subject that was raised by the suit before the Supreme Court today is a subject that the minority touched on. Sam George, who is the deputy ranking of the Communications Committee in Parliament, raised the point about the ministry's own failure to meet their own deadlines and yet sanctioning others for also failing to meet the deadline set for SIM re-registration.
Minister is quick to want to enforce sanctions on Ghanaians by deadlines. The minister herself set a deadline for herself. She said by the 2nd of August, there will be a self-registration app. She failed to meet that deadline. She failed by 24 days. The app was launched on the 26th of August. When it was launched on the 26th of August, today is the 9th of September. The app is still not uploaded on the Apple Play Store. So if you use an Apple product, you cannot download the app. It is only available on Android, the Google Play Store. So who is punishing her? What is the punishment for her not meeting her own deadline? And even on the Apple Play Store, on the Google Play Store, when you download the app and pay the money, you are unable to complete the registration.
Well, the ranking on the Communications Committee, ABF Husseini, was clear that the blocking that has begun must cease immediately. Also hinting that if it doesn't stop and a reversal of this march towards a complete total block of SIM cards that have not re-registered, then the minority in Parliament will be forced to also block budgetary allocations to the ministry and the NCA.
We wish to call on the NCA through the ministry to immediately cancel these very draconian measures imposed on those who have not registered their cards, and even including those who have registered but currently do not have the opportunity to use their SIM cards. We further call on the government to provide the requisite level of resources into brackets funding to enable the NIA to open more offices, recruit more staff, and purchase more materials and equipment needed to accelerate the tempo of the registration exercise. We again reiterate our position that the Ministry of Communication, in the face of these challenges, must exhibit greater flexibility and realism with the current deadlines it is setting by pushing the time frame to the end of the year.
Dr. Pokwe is the Director of Legal at the National Communications Authority and joins us on the telephone line right now. Dr. Pokwe, thank you for your time here on Top Story.
Yes, good evening, Evans, and good evening to your listeners.
Have you seen this Supreme Court suit that A Plus and his group has filed against the NCA?
I would say yes and no. Informally, I have cited a document on social media, but formally, I would then say I've received it because we've not been served.
Okay, and for many, and we have many voices to attest to this, it comes down to two things. First of all, many people are now reporting that their SIM cards have been blocked, although they have fully complied with your directive to re-register their SIMs. That definitely, they say, is illegal.
Well, for such persons who have had their cards blocked, even though they have fully registered, I will empathize with them. But it is not always the case that when those persons claim they have fully registered their cards, they have in fact done so. And I have resolved a number of them today, personally, of colleague lawyers who showed their messages to me. And it was when I alerted them that, in fact, they had only completed the first stage. And the message had been sent to them that they should keep safe and their linking of the Ghana card to their SIM is successful. That was when they ended. They should have gone to the step of going to a service center to have the bio capture done, or for now, to use the app to do the registration. So it's not always the case that they did the full registration. But in the morning, there were a little bit of network issues. So some were not able to place calls. But it was not as if they had been blocked. It was not part of any sanctioning regime of the NCA that those people were not able to make calls. So we empathize with those who got wrongly affected, even though they've done the first and second stages, and are able to verify by using the short code *400# to confirm that the B cap is yes. For such persons, it's an error to have them blocked. And anytime those come to our attention, we are able to communicate to the networks, because it's not in the province of NCA for any blockade to take place. It's rather in the province of the telecom operators.
They are doing so based on your directive, implementing a directive that you've given them.
Well, the directive was that if you have not gone through the full processes, stages, the two-stage process to register, certain sanctions could be applied to you. But in applying the sanctions, it's possible there could be an overreach. In that case, that will not be our instruction that there should be that overreach, because we don't control the networks, which is in the private hands of the operators.
So for those who currently are fully registered but have had their functions, their SIM functions restricted, you say that is down to the telcos?
That is definitely not within the province of NCA, because we don't control the network.
But you understand that this only happened because the telcos were implementing a policy of yours, and that if that policy wasn't there,
we're implementing a policy that if the person has not registered, there should be certain categorization so that in a day or two, those persons will not be able to make calls. And it didn't mean that if you are fully registered, that should apply to you. So, as I said, for those persons, that's erroneous, and we empathize with them. But as soon as it's brought to the attention of the telcos, they are able to remedy it.
Okay. I mean, you can sense the anger in the system, and because the NCA is the authority, since this came to attention that, in fact, people who may have fully registered have still been blocked, I wonder what action has the NCA taking, looking at this nationally on the broader scale?
Evans, that's you can trust. We have not rested at all. We've been on it throughout. We've been placing private contacts here and there. We've been working with them because there's a technical team that the telcos are working with us on, and these matters are being resolved all over the country. So it's not as if we are allowing people to suffer. No, we are resolving any challenge that the system is introducing or confronting us with. And I believe that anyone who has such a system, as soon as it comes to our attention or it gets to a network operator's attention, remedies are able to be provided.
The point that many have made is that this approach is draconian. And because you are the legal director, let me ask you, what is the legal basis for blocking people's SIMs?
Well, I mean, there's a law. I mean, we have laws in Ghana, right? So when you recited the declarations that the People's Group are seeking in the Supreme Court, it was as if the registration process initially, as some claim, was not even backed by any law, but it's backed by law. If you look at the Subscriber Identity Model Registration Regulation, which was passed in 2011, LI 2006, the first provision, which is, as this is an LI, we say Regulation 1, a network operator or service provider shall not activate a SIM for a subscriber unless the subscriber, in accordance with the law, has registered it or complies with the directives of the NCA. So it's mandatory, and I mean the use of the word shall in our interpretation means that it's mandatory that there should not be even an activation of your card in the first place. But we realized that in the previous systems that we had, the system wasn't done well, so people were able to just get large numbers of cards in their name. For now, you can go a maximum of 10 in an individual's name. So the registration process in the past wasn't done well. It's now being done well so that we and I will be safe going forward. And it's mandatory that before the card is activated, it should be registered.
In implementing that law, though, and you concede because of the way we've implemented this, people have been allowed to register. You asked to re-register. There must be fairness in the process, and which brings me back to the avenues to make the registration seamless and easy for people. And this is dependent, however, on another agency's job, which is the NIA's job of issuing people with cards. But even for the NCA itself, you also made a point to give people an avenue to do virtual registration, which again, when it came down to it, the deadline for yourself in enrolling it out was delayed. I mean, in all sincerity and in fairness to people, is it fair now, and that's the subject of the suit, that it's just that you're just being draconian in implementing this blockade of SIMs when you yourselves, over the years, in the last few weeks, failed to meet your own deadlines to make the process of registration easier?
Well, I mean, Evans, for in respect of this, I would say that the policymaker is reasonable and has been reasonable all this while. When we started the registration process in October last year, it had a deadline. It was renewed. It had been extended again. I believe that we're working with a human institution and we are re-evaluating it all the time. So for the sake of fairness, I think the policymaker has been fair thus far in giving ample opportunity for people to register. But any time an extension is granted, then the queues that you see around will then vanish. It tells you that people who are able to queue now, majority of them had Ghana card, but had not taken advantage of the timelines we have to register.
But you also concede. But you also concede on the Ghana card that today, because you're implementing this next phase of blocking, that there are people right now who still don't have the Ghana cards because the NIA has not issued them with their cards and will suffer for no fault of theirs.
Well, I will not be able to speak for the NIA, but we know that if you go by Ghana statistics and statistical service as to number of Ghanaians who are above 15 years who can register for a SIM. We're talking of about 20 million, 19.9, right? As we have in the records now, NIA tells us that about 18 million Ghanaians have registered. They are still doing the registration. As of last month, they were even talking of 17 point something million. I guess it will be inching towards that number now. We will urge people to make sure that they pursue their card and get it. Some cards are there, and people have not even collected them. But those are matters for the NIA to redress.
Except that it's not exactly so that it's for NIA to address. If it's for NIA to address, then why are you sanctioning people who, because of NIA's inability to address it, are having their SIMs blocked then?
Well, I mean, it's as if the people who are being sanctioned have not done anything at all. As I've been saying, when the deadline is approaching, the numbers become huge.
As for that, we don't quarrel.
Centers.
There's no quarrel there.
That there's something amiss.
No, that there's no quarrel. I've told Mr. Pokudu said there's no quarrel that people are. I'm just asking a specific question about people who still don't have their Ghana cards because the NIA is yet to issue them. And NIA, if you look at the numbers, people have registered, but they're yet to issue them. Those people will have their SIM cards blocked. It is the NIA's fault, and yet they are suffering for it. Is that fair?
Well, I think they are working on it. We are working with NIA as well, and they know that there's that obligation on them to make sure that cards are issued to persons who are above 18 years, 15 years, for them to be able to register their SIMs. So we will continue to collaborate with NIA and make sure that these registration processes are smooth.
But you agree for that category of people, the NCA and the Communications Ministry, you're simply not being fair to them. You agree, at least?
Well,
that if their SIMs are blocked,
not be fair to them, considering that a lot of extensions have been given to give people ample opportunity for the acquisition of the Ghana card. And I think if diligent efforts have been made on their part, the cards should have been procured by now.
And finally, there's also a class action. I'm sure you've heard about it. As the last count, they had 1,160 people already signed up. This is in addition to the one that is already before the Supreme Court. Does that come to you as a significant concern? Because obviously you are Director of Legal at the NCA.
Well, I mean, it's yet to come up. And as we say, when we get to the bridge, we'll cross it. But the efforts that we are putting in getting people to sign on to this impending class action, I think we should equally channel those efforts into getting or helping people who need to just use their phone and clear the first stage. And also, now you can even upload the app. You can download the app and then register in the comfort of your home. Just that you may encounter some challenges because there's a lot of pressure on it in the latter stages. But that is how it's become, because we waited for a long time as a people before we took those steps to register. So there's pressure on the app. So someone will say that it's not even working so well, but it's working. People are registering through it. So let's channel the same energies towards helping people to be able to register. And once they have their registration done, there will be no problem whatsoever. And we'll continue to collaborate with NIA and get a lot of cards issued to people so that they can get their same cards registered.
Dr. Pokudu, you make a very important point there. And indulge me for a second. Joining me right now is Salom Brantier. He is with money, and you're leading the class action suit collecting signatures. Mr. Salom Brantier, when I checked with you the last time, you had collected about 1,160 signatures. Is that still the number?
Good evening. Thank you very much, Evans. Currently, we have passed the 1,200 stage, and it seems to be climbing. So for the notice of Dr. Poku Edusai at NCA, we will be coming for you and your entity for the many gaps that have been identified because of this rushed exercise that has been done, which has been done without due consideration of the many variables that exist or should have been considered before the implementation of such a very, very suboptimal, call barring activity. First of all, I would like to say that it is not enough for an entity such as the NCA, which has been mandated to facilitate communication or digital communication of the citizenry of this country, to ensure that it is done within the right parameters, to have allowed this situation to progress to this point, especially when some of us have been very vocal about the possible ramifications of some of these activities and how they will not inure to the benefits of the nation at large. And this has become very evident with the fact that with this whole process, there has been quite a lot of poor data synchronization. And I am talking about this right from a systems perspective, not only from the legal perspective, but from a systems and a policy implementation perspective, where there were so many things that were not considered before this activity was proceeded with. And in spite of the several caveats that were put out there, we recalcitrantly decided, and the position of the minister, sector minister in particular, using the NCA as a tool for this, has been very instrumental in the in the development of this class action suit. Now, for me to go to the specifics, there are several categories of people who have been involved in this, and all these people would have to have their grievances addressed by the NCA. But let me also note here that the subtle dumping of blame by the NCA onto the telcos is disingenuous. It is disingenuous because there is a system that the NCA puts itself up as saying that they endorsed or they procured or they put their mouths behind as being the one that will capture all the biometric data that's required for this SIM re-registration exercise, which is solely done by the Ghana card. And this system was implemented by a player or a public service a private partner that nobody seems to want to identify. Nobody seems to want to show who it is. And they are at the core or the middle of this whole transaction. Because when the transaction that starts, the SIM re-registration activity comes forward, you look at it from the perspective of the individual who's the SIM subscriber holder. You look at it from the perspective of the agent or the agency that is taking the data, which is the telco outlets. You look at it from the perspective of the NIA, which is introducing the sole criterion for SIM re-registration, which is the Ghana card, for which there are logistical differences and project differences and budgetary differences that do not align or are not in tandem with the SIM re-registration exercise, which was completely ignored and for which people are being branded, very unfortunately, as stubborn academy or whatever. To even have that level of disrespect for citizens of this country who pay for a service for which they have performed all requisite legal activities as per the SIM registration law, for which by the whims of somebody in the sector decides that they want to add another mandate to it, for which there was very little cross-sectoral consultation for, and very little analysis of the process that was required for them to have made this process as seamless as possible, and has generated this much attrition. And for us to have a private sector player that is nameless, faceless, handling the intermediation between the data capture and the final, database, from which data will be extracted for people to be barred and blocked from, it means that in the whole chain, everybody is culpable. And to the extent that we can even measure that per the NCA's own public statement, 48 hours of lack of access is what was a punitive measure even before the deadline had been reached. This is indicative of a lack of respect, a lack of consideration, poor emotional intelligence, poor political coherence, and even in current era and dispensation where we talk about servant leadership, collaborative engagements for digitization, we have thrown all of that into the bin. somebody at the NCA and at the ministry needs a primer on how to implement policies seamlessly and flawlessly. And we are going to make them pay for it, because you cannot toy with the lives of Ghanaians. There are doctors who have not been able to access patients. There are people who have not been able to access their business people. There are people who have not been able to access family, all because of this, authoritarian posturing without recourse to any kind of humane consideration of the real problems on the ground.
But Basalam, you say that, but the NCA and the ministry, they've given several extensions to the deadline. Isn't that being fair? And was said the last extension that this was going to be the very final one, and the consequences were laid out for people to know what's going to come, and many still did not go. And yet, when you have a week to the expiration of the deadline, then you see the centers overwhelmed with people. And yet, when you have, once it's extended, people just go back to their daily lives and forget the process. Isn't that part of the problem?
It is very
amusing. If I can come in and just...
just a second. Yes,
I'll let you come.
You
had 15 minutes to make your point. Let me also make my point, please.
Yes, Alon, go on.
With all due respect, it is amusing that the NCA and the Ministry of Communication is coming with this funny posturing, because they themselves gave themselves a certain time range for which they were even supposed to put out an application, which application was supposed to ease the process. Can we even all go, if Evans, you are a journalist, go to the Google Play Store page where this application is and see the reviews and the complaints for yourself. They themselves have proffered a solution that is suboptimal, that is inefficient, that charges people 3, 4, 5 times when they have to even do the process. And he is saying that they can sit in the convenience of their homes and do this. How many people in this country, 30% of smartphone users are iPhone users, and they have not even been considered at all? Today is the 9th of September. There are 21 more days to the deadline. 30% of smartphone users in this country do not have access to this app. The remaining 70% of smartphone users are having myriad complications with the system. This is a system that the NCA has put out as the system that is doing this. Mind you, this is the system that the data is being extracted for which people are being barred from. And you have people who have completed the system, have their BCAP status saying yes, but still have been barred. And all we are hearing from the authority that is supposed to handle this is that they emphasize. Empathy does not recompense the egregious inconveniences that have happened and the losses. You cannot quantify those losses for the 48 hours, as well as the payments people have made for which they have no recourse to even for refunds for the poor performance of this app. And they are paying all of this to an entity that has absolutely no accountability to the people of Ghana. And yet we expect these people to use these systems and then do a mandate that was done by the whims of somebody. This is not how governance is done. And I'm very sorry, Dr. Poku Edusei is trying to do his best for his agency. But this is a situation where we have to consider this as citizens of this country with a right. And this is not even just a right, but this is a right that we have paid for, and there are conditions for which those rights were paid for, and those conditions have now been truncated by the unilateral stance of the NCA, and they are trying to now superimpose the liability on the private sector players who are the telcos, and that is disingenuous, and that is not the right way for which these things should be done. Well, the time that they had all that time that they were extending these things to have consulted with the public policy, the public policy space with several stakeholders, they did not. They were instituting fatwas and instituting deadlines, and they should stick by their deadline. I would really wish that the September 30th deadline would not continue, and then we will see the kind of chaos that the telecom sector will have in this country just because of such arbitrary unilateral decisions.
Dr. Poku Edusei.
Well, that's 2-3 quick points. First, Mr. Branches says he's coming for me and NCA. I will urge him that he should not come for me. I'm there or here as a public servant to serve. And the purpose of all the exercise we're doing is actually supposed to benefit the state Ghana. So you should not see it as any private enterprise that someone is engaged in. And the other thing is that he's talking of a private partner. I mean, any government institution that works with a private partner, whatever product is generated out of it, it belongs to the public institution that commissioned the private partner. The private partner is trying to allude to and shroud in so-called secrecy. It's actually the common platform which belongs to the government of Ghana, and it belongs to Ministry of Communications and Digitalization and the Ministry of Finance. I'm under the auspices of GRA. So it's not for any private individual controlling anybody's data, as he is trying to insinuate. I will urge him that for the 1,200 people that have signed on to his petition to be part of the litigants, they have or they may have grievances. We are here to resolve those grievances. They should let us have access to them, or they should at least approach us with their grievances, and we'll resolve it so that we don't actually go and banter over this issue that will serve the state Ghana in court. The next point I want to draw his attention to is that the branding of persons as Stubborn Academy was not done by the NCA. I mean, we've seen videos of Honorable Sam George and other persons who accepted the young man's song of Stubborn Academy as their new brand. So this is a private sector branded institution that is making hay, and they are now trying to push it onto a public sector. It is not ours. And I will say that for the app, anytime there's a lot of activities on it, of course, it affects its functioning because we have waited so long, and then we've all congregated at a point to use the app. Over time, we are actually looking at it because we tried it, it worked, some have used it. As of yesterday, when I checked the downloads, we've had over 50,000. And about 40,000 of it happened in the last 3 days of its usage. So it tells you that people were not making use of it. It's now available, just that at some point there's a lot of pressure on it, and it could affect its functioning. But it's supposed to function, and the service centers are also working, and we'll make sure that every challenge with the registration system is dealt with and resolved to the satisfaction of Ghanaians.
Salam, what do you say to that assurance?
I am not assured in any way by all of these effusions because there was ample time for a lot of these things to have been done. The NCA and the Ministry of Communication missed the ball and dropped the ball on this one. And citizens of this country are obviously not happy with it. I'm sure they themselves have seen the feedback and they are monitoring. In as much as we would like to also facilitate or help or encourage people to try and register, they themselves have ensured that the barriers in place have remained in place without any consultation or any way to assuage the fears of the public, and rather have dug down in a position that is more of an arrogant posturing, especially from the sector minister, saying that blaming people on their inability. And this is what I'm saying. It is not even just about somebody even just saying Stubborn Academy. It's just about the fact that we are being blamed for something that is an institutional bottleneck. And the fact that we are doing that and then punitive measures are being put on us is a clear demonstration of that labeling or that branding. And it's a clear demonstration of the fact that they are willing to dispense with the rights of the individuals who are concerned, who have legitimately, as far as they were concerned, done what was required by law for them to have a right to communicate. And this has been truncated by the NCA. It is not personal. It is a matter of ensuring that the right thing is done at the right time, is done expeditiously, efficiently, and in the interest and the benefit of the people of Ghana. It has nothing to do with egos. It has nothing to do with political, ideologies. It has everything to do with what are we doing to ensure that we have a safe digital space in this country. We have not done enough. And policy incoherence is one of the reasons why we are where we are. And it is my firm belief that once we begin to do this, we will extend a cautionary tale and we'll create a meme or an example for people to realize that when you are trying to deploy policy, you have to do it in a way that it allows for people themselves to understand and enjoy the benefits of it, and not feel like there is a digital apartheid going on in this country, where there's a deliberate attempt to exclude people for no fault of theirs from a process where we are going to gain economically, socially, and competitively, even between Africa and the rest of the world. This is not how we do things, and this is even against the tenets of our progressive democracy as we have today.
Okay. Thank you very much. Dr. Pogo, let me ask you very quickly before you go. Is the NCA rolling back the punitive measures in any way?
Well, so far, what has been communicated to the telcos is what is supposed to be implemented. But the policymaker is, as I said, reasonable. They listen to all the discussions and discourse on these matters. There's a saying that it may be kept, but it's not broken. And it's deemed to be the best of all proverbs in the world. So let's continue to engage, and then let's encourage people, instead of litigating, to actually get remedies that are faster and more efficient, so that they can have essential services in the telecom sector.
Okay, when you say that, is that to suggest, when you say the NCA is reasonable, does that suggest that you are prepared to roll back a bit and allow people to do the right thing?
Well, Evans, that will not be my province. That's beyond me. But, I mean, Mr. Brantier and co. are operators in the NGO field. They are power brokers. They are players in the field who can engage all sorts of interest groups and leaders. So we urge them to actually engage, because I mean, it's not the first time NCA has been sued on this issue. A lawyer took us to court last year and claimed that there was no law whatsoever supporting the registration exercise. At the end of the day, we were successful, and what became of it? So they should take their time and bring the 1,200 plus persons on board. Let them know their grievances, and we'll remedy them so that they don't go to the court and choke the system, because the court system is already choked.
Thank you very much, Dr. Poku Dusai. And today the minority held a press conference a short while here on Ghana Connect. This is the same conversation we are having. I want all of you to join me now with this conversation. I want to hear what you are experiencing with this re-registration. Now that the sanctions have set in, many of you are experiencing terrible things indeed, with lines being blocked, although you fully registered. Ras Mubarak is connecting with me. Kwame Asari Obeying A+ is connecting with me. Abene Achia is connecting. Julius Kwame Anthony will connect. Peter Kilsing will connect. Thentuo, my colleague, will connect. Andy Dosty will connect. All of them connecting here. Also connecting now is ABA Fusedi Easy, ranking on the Communications Committee in Parliament. Mr. Fuseni, apologies sincerely for holding you on for a while, because I wanted to get the NCA's clarity on the many issues that I know you've touched on the press conference. The NCA fundamentally says they are operating based on a law, and that they have the legal right to sanction and block the SIMs, and that for those SIMs that have been blocked, although their owners are fully re-registered, it is not the fault of the NCA, it's that of the telcos. And that the telcos were only asked to block lines that have not fully registered. And so you have to go to a service center and have your telco address that. Does that address your concern that you raised at the press conference today, Mr. Fusedi?
Not exactly. I'm sure that the NCA is trying to pass it back. Evans, I did hear I think that is the
Director of Legal.
Yes, admit that they have engaged in an action of overreach. I'm sure he said that.
He used the term overreach. Yes, it could be overreach.
So, when you have overreached, when you have infringed upon the rights of others, you take immediate action to abate that nuisance. You should not be making excuses. They should take immediate action to abate that nuisance, and if possible, remedy whatever costs have incurred. Because there is a contract between the and MTN or Vodafone or whichever MNO is concerned under the aegis of the NCA, which ordered the exercise. The NCA cannot run away from responsibility when any lapses occur in this exercise. And so, as a body with that requisite oversight, they must be humble enough to take responsibility for lapses that have gone on in the exercise. But Evans, let's come back to the basics. You are premising the patronage of this exercise on an instrument you don't control. The NCA has absolutely no iota of control over the issuance of the Ghana card. Alright? The NIA has made it abundantly clear that they are not answerable to any other institution. They are not mindful of any timelines drawn by any institution such as the NCA or any other body or the Minister of Communication. So how did NCA and the Minister of Communication take on a dictate of ensuring that they will put a deadline when they have no control over the card and make the card the sole basis for people to register their thing? So you just see that up initial, it doesn't add up. It's a recipe for failure at the very onset. And that is why before the commencement of the exercise, we on the NDC side had an engagement with the Honorable Minister at the NCA headquarters. And we drew our attention to the fact that, look, this attempt to premise the exercise on the Ghana card is fraught with serious danger. And that they should take a second look at it and ensure that other forms of identification can be taken on, such as the birth certificate, the passport, driving license, and the most popular form, the voter ID card. And that premising it on the Ghana card will create huge problems and undermine the efficacy of the exercise. The minister sought to indicate to us that she was acting on the strength of LI 2111. But even if you go and peruse LI 2111, nowhere in that legislative instrument is it indicated that the Ghana card should be used for the registration of SIM card. Nowhere. Indeed, it only lists the Ghana card as a principal instrument. It doesn't say a sole instrument. So there is a clear distinction between a principal instrument and a sole instrument. Nowhere did you say that only the Ghana card should be used. And so that is why they got it very wrong in the first instance. And that is why we have said that irrespective of whatever deadlines we make, if Ghanaians' accessibility to the Ghana card is still as problematic as it is now, we will make several deadlines, renew them, and come back again because the fundamental problem has not been addressed. Is there ready access of Ghanaians to the Ghana card? That is the issue. And even the Director General of the NIA came before Parliament and told us that they are facing serious financial challenges, logistic challenges, money to even replace and buy machines, buy photo items and others, which they don't have. They are facing serious financial constraints in opening more offices in a number of districts where they have no offices and recruiting more personnel. They indicated all this. But you see, the NCA has been impervious to all these things. And I've gone on. Sometimes we cannot blame them too much because they are acting under the instructions of a minister who doesn't want to listen to anybody, who thinks he knows everything. And I'm sure that is where the problem, that's what we are battling with now.
I understand.
But today, people whose rights have been infringed upon will take legal action. And they have to choose the MNOs and others and let them pay for it.
Yeah, I mean, that legal action, in fact, has already been filed before the Supreme Court. But I understand today you issued an ultimatum to the NCA and the ministry to roll back the punitive sanctions. Is that accurate? Okay.
Yeah, we do. And even we are saying that we as representatives of the people cannot stand and watch, cannot stand aloof and watch when the fundamental human rights and freedoms of our people are trampled upon. Even this policy is tantamount to the institution of a collective punishment. Even if the NCA believes that the people who have cast have not gone to register, who tells them that all the people who have not done the registration are taught? If I have gone to that registration, some as far back as 2019, when their card has not been given them, what offense has taken for them to be added to whose things are taken away? If I have a SIM card, and to the let me draw your attention. The honorable member from the planning, honorable Akanvariba, who is a member of our committee, to whom even under the aegis of the NCA, they came to Parliament and registered members and gave them the card. Okay? And also registered them as part of the re-registration outside. They have all been taken away.
Yeah.
Their course have been bad.
The NCA Director of Legal says that's the fault of the telcos.
Who has oversight for the absence of the telco? Don't you think that if the exercise has gone on without any hitch, the NCA will claim credit for what has happened? So why will you claim credit for something that has happened and you're not prepared to take the deficit? They should be passing the back. What they should be doing now is to be working with the telcos to immediately upload that nuisance. So that's why we're saying that immediately they must restore the SIM that have been debarred and give the owners the right to make the requisite calls that they deserve. And I'm saying that we will not take that if the NCA and the ministry does not do this. Even we are holding a stick. I will not hold a stick and let the dog bite me. We will make sure that come November, the appropriations will come before us. And we have done this before. We told the minister before, and she thought we were joking. We told her that if we didn't get the annual report of the NCA, we will not let her come before the committee. And she spent our advice, and we what to say, we drove her away. So I'm telling you that if they do a similar thing, we will drive them away and make sure that the estimates of the Ministry for Communications for 2023 will not be taken. We have the power to do that.
Well, Mr. Abia Fuseni, I'm grateful for connecting with us on Ghana Connect tonight. And that's Abia Fuseni, is the ranking on the Communications Committee in Parliament. Listen, have you been affected by this mess? I want to hear from you on Ghana Connect tonight. Many of you are already connecting, and I see a few of my friends. A Plus is connecting. Hello, A Plus.
Hello.
When you abandon a brother, that's what happens. It's only when you go to the Supreme Court that then you find a way back on Ghana Connect. But anyway, welcome nonetheless.
The best way to defend is to attack.
I'm happy. I'm happy I did it first.
I am a panel member of Ghana Connect.
In fact, you're a founding member, actually.
I am a member. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that you could join me. Also connecting tonight will be Ras Mubarak, a former member of parliament for Kumbungu. He's a member of the Concerned Mobile Network Subscribers. Abena Chia is a student at the Ghana School of Law. Julius Kwame Anthony is a youth activist. Kilsing, former student leader. Also, Andy Dusty, morning show host at Hits FM. We'll also connect. In fact, we'll connect on the phone pretty shortly. Wherever you are tonight, if you've been affected, don't keep quiet. Let me hear from you. This is Ghana Connect. We'll connect shortly in greater detail and speak to all the voices that I've just introduced, including A Plus himself.
Charlie, some things can be very painful, like hitting your toe against the corner of a table, or a failed